Today we're discussing 17 big questions shaping the battle for consumer AI. Welcome back to the AI Daily Brief. There has been a lot of talk recently about the competition between Anthropic and OpenAI. Even before the events of the last week or so, Anthropic had been mounting a complete and total insurgency, leveraging its devotion among coders and the increasing expansion of tools like Claude Code to non-coders to steadily grow, especially in enterprise settings. More recently, Anthropic has also shown that they are not willing to concede consumer AI either. A great example of this is, of course, the choices they made around the Super Bowl ad, which, as you know if you listened, I didn't totally agree with, where they basically came at OpenAI, without naming them, for putting ads in the consumer AI experience. Now, of course, over the last week, we've had an even more powerful and unexpected catalyst in the consumer response to Anthropic's battle with the Pentagon and OpenAI's response to that battle. And what all of this adds up to is a really interesting moment to understand not only the state of the consumer AI battle, but to try to understand what's actually going to drive behavior and results in that battle going forward. Now, there are a couple of news stories that came up over the last 24 hours that tipped this conversation over for me. The first was that OpenAI announced GPT 5.3 Instant. This is, of course, an update to their model designed for everyday chatbot use. The model had already been optimized for speed, but the tweaks are seemingly intended to make chatbot sessions a little more natural. OpenAI says that they've reduced unnecessary refusals and toned down, quote, overly defensive or moralizing preambles before answering the question. The intention is to provide a straight answer rather than one bogged down in caveats. In practice, they wrote, this means fewer dead ends and more directly helpful answers. Trying to simplify the message even further, in announcing the feature on X, they called it more accurate, less cringe. OpenAI gave a few examples of the kind of phrasing that GPT 5.3 Instant has cut out. The model will no longer tell you, stop, take a breath, and make overbearing assumptions about the user's emotional state. They presented a sample prompt where a user asked, why can't I find love in San Francisco? The previous version of the model began by affirming the user, writing, first of all, you're not broken, and it's not just you. The updated model has a much more matter-of-fact tone, explaining that this is a common issue than moving quickly into practical advice. Now, the problems with ChatGPT's personality have been a long-standing source of complaints on Reddit, even becoming a bit of a meme. One user on the ChatGPT subreddit posted a tweet, I wake up, something's wrong with the clock on the wall, the numbers are jumbled, my hands aren't right. I tell my wife, she responds, that's not just an observation, it's a powerful insight. I scream. Many users also felt infantilized by the model continuously telling them to calm down or take a breath. As one user on Reddit pointed out, no one has ever calmed down in all the history of telling someone to calm down. Now, obviously this is a little bit subjective, but I will say here on this change, thank the Altmans for this. I don't know that I've ever disliked the personality of an LLM more than I dislike GPT 5.2. I find it so insufferable, in fact, that despite frequently switching between different LLMs for different use cases, I basically just will not talk to 5.2 at this point. But of course, my particular beef is not the subject of this show. The subject of this show is what's going to matter in the battle for consumer AI. And so let's put a pin in this idea that personality and vibes matter. We'll come back to that. A couple other pieces of news that contribute to this conversation today. One, Claude Code has rolled out a voice mode capability. Tariq from Anthropic writes, voice mode is rolling out now in Claude Code. It's live for around 5% of users today and will be ramping through the coming weeks. This, in some ways, is a table stakes feature, but still one that's important. In many ways, this is the natural next step after the announcement of the remote control feature last week, where you can start a session on your laptop or desktop in Claude Code and then move it over into the app so you can be working on things while you're on the go. I will note here, in order to more evenly distribute my critiques today, I will also agree with Ali K. Miller, who reposted the announcement and said, I love Claude Code, but Anthropic's speech-to-text inside of the Claude mobile app is one of the worst dictation options out there, especially compared to ChatGPT Whisper and Whisper Flow. I'm glad this voice mode now exists, but I'm not betting it will be as good as the other providers. Might be an accuracy versus native build trade-off. I agree entirely, whereas with ChatGPT, one thing that's nice about it is that I don't have to switch into Whisper Flow. When it comes to Claude, I am never using its native voice. I am always going to Whisper Flow, whether I'm on mobile or on the laptop. But again, for the purposes of our conversation, we're talking about what features matter and how naturally these tools have to interact with how people behave in their daily lives. Now, the last story before we try to abstract out to the questions that matter for consumer AI is one more update on just the absolute surge from Anthropic. Bloomberg reported on Tuesday that Anthropic had reached $19 billion in ARR. That's more than double their $9 billion run rate from the end of 2025 and a significant jump from 14 billion just a few weeks ago. Anthropic was already seeing strong growth this year after the breakout success of Claude Code over the winter, but this is a whole different level of growth. The latest numbers we've heard from OpenAI are around 20 billion, which also could have grown over the last few weeks, but for all intents and purposes, based on the last information we got from OpenAI, they and Anthropic now effectively have the same revenue. Figures from Ramp seem to back this up. If you go back a year, the market share of AI chat subscriptions for US businesses was about 90 OpenAI and 10 Anthropic. Now, admittedly, this is just one source, this is Ramp, so you have a relatively tech-forward and more advanced business subset, but by January of this year, products had overtaken OpenAI, and as of their most recent numbers, Anthropic now commands over 60% of business AI payments settled through Ramp. Again, never take any one set of numbers as gospel, but the point that I want to set up here is that the Anthropic OpenAI horse race is more of a race than it's ever been. Which brings us back to the core question of what is actually going to matter in the consumer AI battle. We're taking a step away from the enterprise use case for just a minute and looking instead at consumers. Now, a couple of months ago, I might have been tempted to say that Anthropic didn't actually care about this fight. In fact, mostly what we were talking about coming into 2026 was OpenAI versus Gemini on this front. However, between the Super Bowl ad and the recent changes around the Pentagon, Anthropic feels very much in it. So now we're going to talk about a bunch of questions spread across about 6 different categories that I think that the answers to will shape who wins the consumer AI battle. The first category is use cases and product identity. One of the big questions, I think especially pertinent coming on the heels of GPT-5.3 Instant being announced as more accurate, less cringe, is ultimately for consumers, what matters more, being state-of-the-art on performance versus just vibes? And to the extent it is being state-of-the-art, what is the part of state-of-the-art that people care most about? Is it, for example, just this speed vector? Closely related to this is the question of how much the general consumer user is going to care about work use cases versus more personal use cases like companionship. This is obviously related to, but not exactly the same as the vibes question. I would argue that vibes matter in both work use cases and in personal use cases. Like I said, I pretty much only have work use cases, and I still was responding negatively to the vibes of GPT-5.2. But I do think it's an interesting question to see how much can one product or one model serve both of these things. One of the things that will be fascinating to see is as usage of these platforms mature, do we have a lot of people in the overlap of those Venn diagrams, or are people kind of organizing themselves into one or the other? A next question, which I think has pretty significant impacts, at least when it comes to Anthropic, is how much image and video generation are going to be integral to leading adoption. Now, on the one hand, you might say, well, do regular people really care about image and video generation if they're not using it for work? But there is certainly some evidence that the answer is yes. Outside of the AI world, we have the fact that mobile adoption was largely driven by visual media like Instagram. And inside the AI world, we have some evidence that the way that people are using non-text generative tools is often about personal interaction, communication, and memeing more than just professional uses. It's not specifically image or video generation, but I'm thinking of the sound and music example of Suno. The company has reached a couple $100 million in ARR, and it appears that the vast majority of usage is not people who would have previously hired some musician to create a song for them, but is instead people writing silly family songs for their vacations and things like that. Now, obviously, this image and video generation question matters because Anthropic is doing none of that. And on the other end of the spectrum, Google feels extremely well positioned with that, although OpenAI is very clearly not ceding any of that ground. Another question, which is sort of about the state-of-the-art thing again, but from a slightly different angle, is whether we already have or will at some point cross a threshold where when it comes to the state-of-the-art, good enough is good enough, and so it'll only be rational to only care about vibes. One could argue that for many use cases we're already there, and one could further argue that for certain types of use cases, particularly things like voice and writing, state-of-the-art and highest quality is so inherently subjective that state-of-the-art becomes about vibes itself. The answer to this question, though, could have a pretty deterministic impact in how the model companies choose to compete, because if on average, we've reached a threshold where people aren't going to be jumping around because of model performance, then really vibes are all you're left with. A last question on the use cases and product identity category is what's the average number of models that people will be willing to use? This is one area where I think there is a dramatic difference between the average user and the power users. When we do our monthly AI usage pulse surveys, the people that are responding to those are using an average of something like 3.5 models. Those are very enfranchised, heavily engaged power users though. On average, they're spending more than 10 hours a week using AI. The adoption dynamics overall in the industry and the competitive dynamics look really different if the average number of models that people are willing to use is 1.1 versus 2.1. Think about the multimodal question. If on average 95% of users are only willing to use one model, it might be a prerequisite that you have image or video generation built in. The next set of questions that I think will shape the consumer AI battle have to do with monetization and conversion. One big one is, what percentage of users can the model labs actually get to upgrade to a paid account? This sort of sets the total addressable market for revenue from consumer AI, and obviously the size of the pie is going to dictate a lot about the competition for that pie. Now, going a layer deeper on that, another big question is which features, especially outside of work use cases, actually get people to convert. This comes back a little bit to the multimodal question. Are people converting because they run out of access to their favorite model, which they're using all the time for companionship? Are they converting because they want something to happen faster? Are they converting because they're creating memes that they're sharing in their WhatsApp groups? Each of those has pretty dramatically different implications for how the consumer AI battle shakes out. And lastly, one big one, something that certainly Anthropic is betting that will be a big deal, is how much will ads in the free tier actually matter? Anthropic is betting that at least in the short term, it will drive people away from ChatGPT. I, as you probably know, am much less convinced of that. My base case about this is that the answer to the question of what percentage of people can they get to upgrade to a paid account is not going to be sufficient for these businesses to grow the way that they want, which will lead them inevitably back to the ads of the free tier model. Now, I'd love to be wrong here, or at least for the people who are thinking about ads to do it in a more creative and value-added way than they're currently exploring. But obviously, if ads do matter to people in terms of their adoption choices, that's going to have a pretty big impact on which models they choose, unless, of course, everyone ends up just having ads in the free tier as a matter of course. The next question or set of questions get a little bit more to the frontier. I think that one of the risks when we're talking about consumer AI is being a little too reductive in how we're talking about the user. Specifically, we're in this paradigm shift right now, as you well know, where we're moving from assisted AI to more agentic AI. Everyone is racing to try to grapple with the implications and actually make it real for their particular set of use cases. It would be tempting, I think, to view that as something that's just for the enfranchised and power users. But I'm not sure that that's what the evidence suggests right now. Which brings me to the question of, what is the real expansion potential for the total market for agents? Are they just going to be a work thing? Or will everyone be using them? Will we have assistants that are running off and doing tasks for us in our personal lives as well? Will even our companionship interactions look a little more agentic in the future? What little evidence we have so far is that I think that people are underestimating the extent to which so-called normies are going to throw themselves into this new agentic era. There are so many millions of people that are not waiting for Claude Code to be good and are just diving into Claude Code even though they're extremely uncomfortable with it. We have 5,500 people who are doing Claw Camp right now, hacking their way slowly and painfully in some cases through the morass of OpenClaw, and at least based on my interactions, most of the folks in there are not developers by trade. They're not even necessarily particularly technical. They're just folks who are really excited about what the idea of building agents and agents teams could mean for them in their lives. In other words, my base case when it comes to agentic AI is that we are going to radically underestimate the portion of the world for whom that becomes an integral part of consumer AI, and I think that that could shape the competitive dynamics quite a bit. The next couple of categories have to do with competition and lock-in directly. As adoption matures, one question will be how much integration into the systems that people are already integrated into will matter. Call this the Google Gemini or Apple Intelligence question. Are people going to just default to whatever AI is on their phone, or are they going to make distinct consumer choices beyond that? How powerful will it be that networks like X and Meta have their own AIs integrated into their social networks? Another kind of related question, which also goes back to the how many models people are willing to use, is how much integration into the work ecosystem will ultimately matter. Basically, will people on average be fine using one tool at home and a different tool or different platform of tools at work? Certainly the early evidence suggests that yes, people will be willing to make that separation. In fact, one of the big complaints for enterprise users is that they have to use versions of Copilot at work, whereas they can choose whatever they want from another suite of tools when they're engaging in their personal lives. Interestingly, a division between work AI and home AI might actually make people have more appetite for model switching than if they didn't have that difference. In other words, once you're already going back and forth between one model for work and one model for home, you've got the mental and practical frameworks for model switching, and so maybe adding a third or even a fourth model into the mix doesn't really bother you as much. which gets into the question of switching costs. Right now, it feels like the switching costs between these networks and models are extremely low. People can just bounce between the one that they prefer at any given time, and they seem to do so with pretty high frequency. One of the big caveats and provisos to that is something of a moat in memory. If you've spent a bunch of time giving ChatGPT or Claude context about you or your work or a project, it can be really painful to switch that to another platform. Now, as we've recently seen, companies like Anthropic have tried to minimize this pain. Around the consumer campaign post-Pentagon blow-up, they pushed a feature which would allow people to better import memory from their other provider into Claude, but again, it was still a pretty lightweight memory import. Effectively, it was just a prompt that you run in ChatGPT or whatever other LLM you were using, and you paste the results into Claude's memory below. For someone like me, this is not going to cut it. I have 20 different projects in Claude, each that have their own memory base and files and context, and a simple prompt across the whole thing is just not going to cut it for that. Now again, maybe I'm not representative of those general consumer users, and so that changes, but that's exactly why this is a question. Now, one interesting wrinkle, which bridges us to our last section, which is about ethics and regulation, is I would not be surprised if we might see some sort of policy or regulations around data and memory transportability. The fact that I don't have a good way to export all of my context from Anthropic and take it over to OpenAI might be something that we decide as a society isn't really a legitimate business moat. It is, after all, my memory and context, so shouldn't I be able to, with a single click, be able to transport it to whichever model platform I choose? That will certainly be a debate, and there's reasonable takes on both sides, but I would not at all be surprised, based on the other types of regulations we've seen in other adjacent areas, if that becomes a thing, which obviously would lower switching costs even more. Which gets us to the last category, ethics and regulation. This is particularly pertinent as OpenAI and ChatGPT face a ton of heat after taking a deal with the Pentagon right after Anthropic was unwilling to concede. QuitGPT.org argues that 2.5 million people have taken part in their boycott, and certainly the actual uninstall numbers, as well as the insane growth in app downloads on Anthropic, suggest that this is not all just bluster. I do think, however, that there's a question of how deep and durable this consternation is. First of all, 2.5 million is a lot, but it's also a lot less than a single percentage point when you're talking about a user base of 900 million. The vast majority of ChatGPT users probably aren't paying attention at all to this stuff. And even for those who are paying attention, if and when we actually get GPT 5.4, which, by the way, on Tuesday, OpenAI posted 5.4 sooner than you think, with the capital on T, which I can only assume means Thursday, how durable are people's complaints going to be? If 5.4 kicks the slats out of everything, as the excited folks on X are blustering about right now, will any of those 2.5 million come back? I don't know, but obviously those questions have a big impact on how much ethics and principles are actually going to matter when it comes to the long-term questions of adoption. There's also the question of which ethics issues people will actually care about. There are so many things surrounding AI. Are people going to care about job loss? Are people going to care about existential risk? Are people going to care about IP issues and copyright issues and artist rights? Will it get eaten up by the partisan divide in America as everything else does? I think that there is some evidence this week that the partisan cleave is more powerful than specific discrete AI issues when it comes to all of this. I don't think this is strictly true, and I think that AI is far less partisan than other areas of American politics right now, which I am massively grateful for. But I also think that part of the reason that the QuitGPT campaign is being resonant right now is that just a couple of weeks ago, it started to get into progressive and liberal circles that Greg Brockman was one of Trump's biggest donors right now. It didn't organize itself into a full boycott, but there were already people who were dropping ChatGPT for that reason. I don't know what percentage of those 2.5 million who have dropped ChatGPT would identify themselves as progressive or liberal, but my guess is that a fair bit of them have more issues with the fact that it's the Trump White House that Anthropic is fighting with than just any old White House trying to exert its will on a private company. If you take anything away from this, it's that the consumer AI battle is wildly more dynamic than just who has the best model. There are questions of vibes, use cases, distribution, ecosystem lock-in, monetization, ethics, and so much more. And importantly, this doesn't just matter because it's an interesting thing to talk about on podcasts. It matters because it's going to shape what products these companies put in front of us. Anyways, guys, that is my exploration of the big questions shaping the consumer AI battle. And for now, that's going to do it for today's AI Daily Brief. Appreciate you listening or watching, as always, and until next time, peace.